Welcome to the second episode of Earth 2 Insight. I'm your host, Paul Archer. In today's episode, we're going to do a raiding masterclass. I'll show you how to find good targets, supercharge your cydroids, and maximize your ether yield, as well as some tips and tricks to really help speed the process up. Let's dive right in. Ether is generated on all Tier 1 and Tier 2 properties that have a mentor. For the first 24 hours, that ether is stable and can only be collected by the owner. For the next 24 hours, raiders have a window to harvest any unclaimed ether before it evaporates on the third day. Raided ether can be held in its raw state and used to synthesize civilians, or transformed into essence at a rate of 6.5%. Every time a Cydroid successfully raids one ether, it also accumulates one red energy, which we use to sustain our civilians. Now we've got the basics down, let's look at how to target properties. There are a number of ways we can find good raiding properties on the Earth 2 platform. On your profile page, there's a couple of tabs up in the top left-hand corner that are incredibly useful. The first is Buy Land. If we click on that, we get a little search bar here. And if I add in a property or a name of a place, it'll bring me there. And I can kind of browse around and have a look whether it's busy, whether there are a lot of properties there, or whether it's empty and it's not going to be very good for raiding. Searching through thousands of properties can be quite labor intensive, so there is another option that's available to us. Plenty of E2 players work on the marketplace, constantly scanning, looking for deals, or perhaps people selling out quite cheaply, and they collect up those properties and then relist them, and we call them flippers. They can be a great resource if you're looking for raiding targets. There's a number of them: Ref Code Mario, Squallow 7. I like this guy, Son Goku DB. Now, if I type the name in there and then sort that by owner, that and give a little search, that'll bring up any kind of properties that he has. I'm going to jump straight into one of the properties that I've already chosen. It's kind of within my price range, just under 30 bucks there. And we'll scroll up to the property itself. This is it here in the Italian flag. If I click a few of the other properties around this, we can see this in this little right hand corner tab. This property still has 3170 essence left. The little blue symbol indicates that it has a mentor on it and it's a tier 1 property. So it's a nice little roundup of what's going on. This one, you can see here the mentor is actually grayed out and it's got a little line through it. So it means it doesn't have a mentor. So it's not a viable raiding option. It is a tier 1 property and it still has 14. Maybe he'll add them later or not. We see this one has 3173, this one has 13, this one has 24. So there's certainly a lot of raid options around it. Now, maybe all of them won't work out, and I'll pick ones that do and add them in as my favorites. But we'll get to that as we work into Cydroids. Let's go back to the property itself. It's these Italian flags here, and we'll scroll down and look at some info on whether it's a good buy for us as well. I'll click on property info and scroll down, and we can see here in the minimum essence section that this property still has almost 40 essence left. It's already transformed about 36 essence. So not only am I buying the property for raiding, but I'm also getting some essence with the property too. Let's look at the price. He's buy now for $26. You can see that he purchased it for $21, so he's only really marking up a few dollars, and that's what the flippers do. They sell a lot of properties quite cheap. They're not really looking at raiding, and there's certainly different kinds of ways of playing the eco sim. We're concerned with raiding, so this is a good deal for us. We can look at the new land value, which is T1 here, and it's 94. So it's almost a quarter of the price. So it's a pretty good deal. So now we've seen how to find good target properties for your Cydroids. Let's take a closer look at the Cydroids themselves. There are 30 different kinds of cydroids with 5 different rarities. We can see on this chart the common are represented in white with the uncommon in green. Rare is blue, epic purple, and the legendary cydroids are in gold. In terms of rating, on Tier 1 and Tier 2 properties, we can think of all cydroids as equal, at least at this point in time. Things change though when we move to Tier 3 properties. If you want to raid from a Tier 3 property, a common cydroid will only be able to raid other properties up to 25 tiles, with uncommon being able to go a little higher to 50 tiles, rare is up to 100, epic 250, but the legendary cydroids remain unrestricted. We can think of cydroids as kind of little crypto miners going around harvesting ether and essence for us. These have many utilities within the platform, but they will also be released at a later stage on an exchange as an ERC20 token. We have 3 options to get cydroids onto our properties to begin raiding. We can create them, we can buy them from the Cydroid marketplace, or perhaps we'll buy a property that actually has cydroids already installed on it, so we inherit them. Let's start with the first one. I'll jump into buy land up here to get to the little raid window. I'll click that. And then I'm going to sort that by tethered cydroids. Cydroids that are already on a property. Now I've got it sorted to low, so it's going to pop up with properties that don't have cydroids. If I click this little button, we can see a few options here. There's build, there's relocate, power, and raid. All of those are related to the cydroids. So I'll click build and then add one. We can see here that costs 2.5 essence to build. It's also going to take 24 hours. If I click this little option here to pre-power the cydroid, then that's going to add an extra 5 essence onto the cost of it. And you can select how many you want. It's only 1 in this instance. If I click start build, it's going to give me a little summary of that. 2.5 essence for the cydroid, 5 for the power cell. And you can always depower the cell and get the 5 essence back later, but the 2.5 that you spent is burnt. Our second option is to buy directly from the Cydroid marketplace or from other players. Let's access that through the marketplace tab. I'll click Bazaar and then jump straight into Cydroids. And we can see that it's sorted here by rarity, Cydroid name, and the price lowest. So you can also click on My Items. You may have listed some for sale. But as we scroll down, we can see that a lot of the commons are here around 29 cents. There's certainly a lot of them there. 265 pages. Some are different rarities. As I scroll through the rarity, you'll see that the prices do increase. So we got 30 cents minimum on uncommon. We have 30 cents also on rare, which is quite good. Epic is 151, so you can see there's a little jump there, and legendary is a bit more expensive again, starting out at 688. For our third option, we return to the marketplace, this time adding Cydroids into the search bar. Again, we can sort by tier or maybe class. And as we scroll down, we can see here that they're declaring which Cydroids they have. Sometimes they have different rarities of Cydroids. Sometimes they don't specify. So we can scroll down and you'll just buy that, add it to your property. The Cydroids will land with the property, but often people will have depowered them, or they'll have taken the essence out, and all you'll have to do is just add some more essence to it to create that power cell, and then you can immediately start raiding. So it's definitely a quicker way to get Cydroids rather than creating them and waiting for the 24-hour window. If you want to get into raiding very quickly, this is a good option. So now we've got our properties with our Cydroids installed, we are ready to raid. And the action of raiding itself is very simple. If I jump back into the raid window and I click on any property that displays Cydroids, you can see them here where it says tethered. It has an option of 3, and we'll click the little button. I'm going to charge those Cydroids and then I'll click raid. As I scroll down, there's a little bit of information here. You can see how charged they are. It's 88%. They do have a power cell. If they don't, they won't be able to be sent out. And as I scroll down, I come to the list of available properties around me with a Menthar. Now, this is the range around me. There may be more properties further out, and I'll show you how to get to them a little bit later on. But for the moment, I'm going to pick one of these that I've already favorited by simply clicking this little icon. So I'll click on the other side and press raid, and off it goes. Now, as it's raiding, it shows you a little graphic here, and we can see that the 3 Cydroids have gone off. It's going to take 1 minute 40 to get there. Then it's going to scan the property, and then it's going to return. So that's what these 3 little bars signify. We've seen how to research and scout good properties to target for raiding. But across a lot of properties, it may be very difficult to remember which ones you had targeted. Thankfully, E2 has created a very simple and intuitive system to enable us to mark those properties out. We can access that through the raid window. I'll click this one in Chavistopia. I'll scroll down. There's a very useful option just here above the list of tiles. Property size is the default. I'm actually going to select tier. Now we can see in this that there is a favorited property there right at the top. It's tier 1. If I wanted to add another property to that list, I would click the button. As I click through, you can see it's changing symbol. So you can choose which symbol you want or you prefer, and eventually it'll just come back to empty or no symbol at all. If I sort by favorites, you can see that this property has quite a lot of favorites. There's quite a lot of inactive accounts in this area. If I click into one of them, that'll bring me straight to the property info. And as I scroll down, I can get all those details about how much essence is left and remaining. And as we go down through it, you'll see that there's definitely that pattern there. And that's what made me pick them. And then I start rating them. Over a period of time, if they're not getting returns, if they're coming back unsuccessful, I'll simply remove them from the raiding list. Once a Cydroid has returned from a successful raid with Ether, that will be displayed in this little top bar, and we can see up here that there's 197 Ether to be dispensed. I can click on this and go ready to dispense. I'll sort that from high to low. All I have to do is click into the property, and you can see that this needs to be charged. I'll just click that and dispensed, and you can see the number up here has gone down. Now that means that there's more to be dispensed. So I'll click on these, and you can run through them very quickly. How many tiles we have on a property determines how many Cydroids we can install there. We can see in this little chart that anything under 4 tiles cannot sustain a Cydroid. So a little tip, if you see in the marketplace people advertising a property with under 4 tiles with Cydroids, they're being very, very naughty. Now, as we scroll down, we can see it's a little sliding scale here of how many Cydroids you can apply. 60 to 99 tiles can give you 4. 200 to 324 is 6, all the way down to what we call a flex, 750 tiles, and you can install 10 Cydroids on that property. The Cydroids that we have access to at the moment are first generation Cydroids, meaning that they are RAID enabled. They're also able to perform other functions on the platform, but in terms of raiding, we're able to boost their ability significantly with jewels. Let's take a look how. All Generation 1 Cydroids come equipped with 3 jewel slots. You can access this through the RAID management window and press Cydroids. If we choose one and scroll down a little, we can see all the info about that droid, but beneath that is the dual slotting button. We'll click that and you can see that there's 3 distinct dual slots there. On the left-hand side of the screen is our inventory for jewels, and it will only show up jewels that can be slotted here. If I pick one and scroll down, I can add it into the jewel slot. Now, if that cydroid is active, if it's raiding or dispensing or charging, then it may wait for a while. We can see that this is pending and it will only be activated once it's dispensed all its ether. You also can't remove them. They will be locked in if it's in the middle of doing a task. So you do have to wait or charge or dispense them before you can chop and change your joules out. Now let's take a look at which joules affect functionality on cydroids and what they actually boost. We can see here that serpentine affects the capacity or the amount of ether a cydroid can collect in a raid. Sunstone is affecting power cell efficiency. The more efficient your cydroid is, the less it needs to be recharged. Slate extends the raid range. The default is 1 kilometer. So if you don't have any targets within your vicinity, you can extend that range out. Prehnite is power concentration level. The more power is concentrated into your battery, the longer you can stay out, the more raids you can do before you need to recharge. Cat's Eye increases not just the speed of your cydroids in raiding, but also in relocating. Chrysocolla speeds up the ether dispensing time, again pushing your cydroids out for more and more raids. Orange speeds up the building time of cydroids. Remember, it's a 24-hour period to build a cydroid, so if you can speed that up, you can get more onto your properties quicker. And Peridot is increasing the relocation range. If you do need to move your cydroids to other properties, the default is 300 kilometers, and you can extend it out to about 1800 kilometers. In this next chart, we can see the percentage boosts of each type of joule on the cydroids. I'm not going to run through them all. It is here. You can scan through it, or you can certainly find it on the Earth 2 website. But it is worth noting that some combinations of joules may be very effective. You might like to slot slate and serpentine together, or chrysocolla. Those three are a nice mix, depending on what you're really wanting. If your properties that you're targeting are further away, maybe you're going to want prehnite or sunstone. You want to increase the efficiency and the range. If you're traveling very far, you're going to need more power, so you can mix and match it and see what really works for the properties that you're targeting. In the beginning of our raiding journey, there will inevitably be a degree of trial and error as we work out what strategies are more effective, what gives us the best ether yields. But in the meantime, there are a few things we can look at, some tips and tricks that really will help speed up the process. Let's take a look at them now. The first tip I want to share with you is the keyboard shortcuts. Now, if you don't have a lot of properties, then clicking these things with the mouse is totally acceptable. But if you've hundreds of properties raiding, that's going to become very taxing on your mouse hand. So that we can use the keyboard shortcuts in conjunction with the mouse, and we can save ourselves a lot of time and we can speed up the process. We can see here in the raid management window that I've got some ether that has to be dispensed, and these cydroids also need to be charged. If I press C on the keyboard, that will charge it. If I press G, it will dispense it. We can also use the letter OR button on the keyboard to initiate a raid. So if I click that and press OR, it will open the window. It won't do the raid button down here. You've got to press that manually. But all these keyboard shortcuts are going to speed up the process for you. My third tip is in regards to collecting your own ether. Otherwise, you're leaving yourself vulnerable to be raided, and you're raiding on one side but losing it on the other, and that's not a battle we want to be in. Ether spawns at different times on different properties. So if you are going to collect your ether, I'd recommend doing it at least twice a day. I do it multiple times a day as I'm often raiding. But up until I was on a 24-hour flight, I had never been raided. So it's certainly working, and I see other people questioning why they're raiding if they have collected their ether. It's because it spawns at different times of the day, so that 24-hour window is kind of moving all the time. My fourth tip is in regards to the notifications. You can see I've pulled up the notification window here, and there's a lot of successful raids happening, but I'm not actually concerned with them. I'm looking for unsuccessful raids. This gives me a lot of information. If I click on an unsuccessful raid, it will tell me where it is and who I tried to raid, and if it's unsuccessful multiple times, then it's not a useful target for me, and I will go into that property and remove its tag as a favorite. For the fifth tip, we're going to focus on charging. Now, if you're sending out raids and the cydroids are not adequately charged, they may run out of power, and in doing so, the raid is abandoned and they will come back at a snail's pace to be recharged. And so you waste a lot of time in raids if you're allowing them to go out. Now, when you click through in the process we saw earlier, you can charge them, but if you just charge them and immediately go into a raid, then they have only had a couple of seconds. And depending on how low they have depleted their energy cell, they may need a minute up to 6 or 8 minutes to get a full charge. So what I do, I'm using the keyboard shortcut, is I just scroll down, I'll press C, and I'll run through them all. So by the time I get to the end of this list, I think there's about 15 pages of properties that I raid from, and then I come back to the start. I'll sort that by high, low at the end. Then those will probably have adequately charged. My sixth tip is about raiding in general. At the moment, it's kind of like the Wild West, where people don't really know what's going on with the platform yet, and a lot of people are letting Ether just slip through their fingers. This may change very quickly once Essence has an external value, and we'd find that the number of raidable targets diminishes drastically, but we still have the same amount of raiders. Shane has definitely encouraged us to enjoy this moment in the sun before the platform goes viral or takes off. So the only question that remains is, what are you waiting for? Get your raid on. As a final thought, I'd like to thank the E2 community and Shane for all the encouragement and support that I've got in what I'm trying to do here. In particular, a few bastions of the E2 community, Dave, Kirby, Jethro, and Woel. If you want to support me making more content and this channel, there's a few options in the video description below.